I never imagined that a single night could tear apart everything I thought I knew about the world, until I saw him by the fire. He was a stranger, yet his eyes pierced through me, unraveling thoughts I hadn't dared to speak, exposing fears and dreams I didn't know I had. The flames danced across his face, revealing both warmth and secrets, and every instinct screamed that this night would change me forever. The night pressed in around me, heavy with the scent of burning wood and the earth's damp breath. The village was silent, save for the occasional whisper of the wind through dry leaves. My heart pounded as I wandered past the familiar huts, drawn inexplicably to the edge of the forest clearing, where a fire glimmered like a hidden promise. He sat there, alone, the firelight flickering across his features. His guitar rested across his lap, scuffed and worn, yet held with reverence, as though it carried memories and voices far older than the night itself. His fingers hovered over the strings, poised to summon something invisible, yet deeply powerful. The air thrummed with anticipation, not just from the fire, but from the energy he seemed to command without effort. I stopped, breath caught in my chest. His eyes met mine, sharp, knowing, and unsettlingly intimate. For a moment it felt like he could see every secret tucked in the folds of my heart. I wanted to run, to escape this intensity, yet some invisible tether held me in place. I stepped closer, drawn by curiosity, fear, and an inexplicable need to understand him. Then a single note rang out, pure, trembling, and vibrating with an unseen power. My soul reacted before my mind could process. Without realizing it, I opened my mouth and joined in, my voice hesitant, unsure. But the instant our tones blended, the world seemed to melt away. The firelight grew warmer, shadows stretched and twisted, and the night itself leaned in to listen. The harmony we created was unlike anything I had known. It was raw, ancient, alive. Each chord spoke of longing, of hidden pain, of dreams yet unrealized. Each note seemed to carry fragments of lives we had never lived, yet somehow remembered. The fire flickered brighter, shadows dancing on the ground like spirits drawn to the sound. I stole glances at him, trying to read the expression on his face. Was he aware of the magic unfolding? Or was it something he had done countless times, and I was merely another witness? His eyes held a calm intensity, but there was a flicker, a spark that made my heart tighten, of something more, something dangerous, something that promised revelation and risk in equal measure. He finally spoke, low and deliberate, voice carrying weight I could feel in my bones. "Music finds those who are ready," he said, "and tonight, it has found you." I swallowed hard. But I didn't know I could. I didn't know I could sing like this, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. He smiled faintly, enigmatic, and almost teasing. "It's not about knowing, it's about feeling. And tonight, you feel more than most ever do in a lifetime." My chest tightened. His words cut straight to my heart, stirring emotions I had tried to bury. Loneliness, hope, fear, longing. I realized that the night, the fire, the music, and this stranger were all conspiring to unravel me. And yet, I did not resist. We played and sang until the fire burned low, the night thickening with shadows and possibilities. Every chord, every lyric, seemed to pull us closer, connecting us in ways I couldn't explain. I sensed that behind his calm demeanor lay stories, losses, victories, secrets, that he had yet to reveal. And somehow, I felt that my presence tonight was part of that story. As silence fell, the air charged with unspoken words, he leaned back slightly, eyes glinting in the firelight. There was a weight there, a hidden truth he wasn't ready to share. And yet, I felt it. The knowledge that this encounter was no accident, that our meeting had purpose beyond chance. He looked at me with an unreadable smile, and I realized the firelight hid more than shadows. Behind those glowing eyes was a truth that could change everything I believed about music, life, and destiny itself. And when he finally stood, lifting the guitar like a crown, I knew this night was only the beginning, a night that would rewrite everything I thought I knew about the world, and myself. The music between us wasn't just sound. It was a tether, pulling our lives into a story far larger than either of us had known. Every chord, every trembling note, felt like a thread stitching together secrets, memories, and emotions that had been waiting for this very night to emerge. I wasn't ready to understand it, and yet I couldn't look away. The fire crackled gently, sending flickers of amber across his face. The night air was heavy with the scent of earth, wood smoke, and a faint hint of jasmine that drifted from the surrounding forest. I stood close enough to feel the warmth, yet far enough to sense the distance between us. A delicate balance of curiosity and caution. His fingers danced across the guitar strings with an ease that seemed almost supernatural, pulling melodies from the instrument as though it were a living thing. Each note vibrated in the air, brushing against my skin like a whisper, stirring emotions I didn't know I could feel. I opened my mouth and joined in, my voice hesitant, trembling at first, then growing steadier as the music claimed me. The song we created was more than harmony. It was dialogue, confession, a bridge between two souls that didn't yet fully understand one another. My heart raced, and every beat seemed synchronized with the rhythm of his chords. I realized I could sense his thoughts, not in words, but in vibrations, joy, sorrow, longing, and a hint of mischief hidden beneath his calm expression. As the melody flowed, I noticed the firelight playing differently across him, shadows stretching and contracting, highlighting the planes of his face, the tension in his hands, the quiet intensity in his eyes. There was history there, stories unspoken, and a quiet gravity that made my own existence feel fragile and fleeting in comparison. Yet somehow, I belonged in that moment, carried along by the current of sound we were creating together. The night seemed to hold its breath. Crickets and rustling leaves faded into silence, as if nature itself had stopped to listen. I realized with a shiver that this music wasn't just for us. It belonged to the night, to the stars above, to some hidden audience that existed beyond the realm of sight and sound. Every note carried weight, pulling us closer while revealing something unspoken, that we were part of a story that had begun long before this evening and would continue long after. His gaze met mine, mid-song, brief yet piercing. There was recognition there, not just of my voice, but of the act itself, that I had chosen to step forward, to share in this creation without hesitation. A flicker of a smile played across his lips, and for an instant, the world felt suspended between the chords, a fragile bubble of light and possibility. I poured myself further into the song, letting each phrase be a confession of hope, fear, and courage. The melody wrapped around us, protective yet intimate, carrying the weight of invisible memories. I could feel the tension in his shoulders, the slight rise and fall of his breath, and the unspoken language of someone who had known both triumph and loss. Each note seemed to echo a promise that whatever truths lay hidden, they would be revealed here, in this firelight, through this music. And then, without warning, he stopped. The strings went silent, leaving a void in the night that pressed against my chest. His hands hovered over the guitar, frozen, and his eyes flickered with urgency. There was something he wasn't telling me, something that shivered just beyond reach, pulling me forward even as fear rooted me to the ground. My pulse quickened. What is it?" I asked, voice shaking, though I feared the answer. He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he leaned back slightly, letting the firelight catch the edges of his face. There was a gravity there that I hadn't noticed before, as though the song had only been the opening, a test, a prelude to something larger. I realized then that the music had done more than bind us. It had revealed a connection, a shared secret between strangers, one that would not be easily broken. And yet, the sudden silence made the night feel heavier, charged with tension. I wanted to speak, to break the pause, but no words felt sufficient. Everything in me waited, suspended on the precipice of revelation. Finally, his voice broke the silence, low, measured, and full of unspoken weight. "There are things you don't know," he said, eyes locking with mine. "And there are things you're not ready to understand." I swallowed hard. The fire flickered, shadows twisting like the tangled threads of the story he hinted at. Then, "Why show me?" I whispered. He didn't answer. He simply looked at me, a gaze so profound it seemed to reach through time and memory. My heart raced as I realized the truth. This encounter, this song, was no accident. It was a calling, an initiation into a world I had not yet imagined, a world where music carried power, secrets, and destiny. The wind picked up, brushing against the fire and sending sparks dancing like tiny stars into the dark. Each one reminded me that the night was alive, and that the firelight we shared was not merely illumination. It was revelation. Every flicker cast shadows, but it also revealed possibilities, choices, and hidden paths I had never considered. I stepped closer, drawn by an invisible thread that connected us beyond the melody. My voice, small and uncertain, reached out again, seeking harmony, seeking understanding. He nodded slightly, acknowledging the unspoken invitation, and together, our song resumed, deeper, richer, and brimming with unspoken truths. It carried weight, beauty, and a hint of danger, as though the music itself held power we could not yet control. The night stretched endlessly, each note binding us, shaping us, revealing the edges of a story far older and larger than the firelight, the forest, or even ourselves. And through it all, I understood that this was more than a song. It was a tether, a bridge, a declaration that destiny had chosen this moment for us. Suddenly, he stopped, letting the last chord linger in the night like a warning. His eyes held something dangerous, something I was not ready for. A secret, hidden behind the music, awaited revelation. And I knew, without a doubt, that once it surfaced, nothing would ever be the same. My heart pounded as I realized. This stranger, this fire, this song, was only the beginning of a story that could change everything. The night felt alive, heavy, secretive, and watching me. Every crackle of the fire, every rustle of the leaves whispered a story I wasn't meant to hear. Yet I couldn't turn away. And then I saw him, the stranger, strumming his worn guitar, eyes locking with mine in a way that made my heart tremble and my soul feel exposed. That first glance told me one thing. This night would change everything I believed about reality, and nothing would ever be the same again. The fire crackled between us, its warmth barely touching the chill that seeped into the forest. His fingers moved over the strings with a practiced ease, drawing out melodies that seemed impossibly alive, notes bending through the darkness, brushing against my chest, stirring something deep inside me. My voice trembled as I joined him, hesitant at first, then louder, until our sounds merged into something that felt older than time itself. But the shadows around the fire were not ordinary. They flickered unnaturally, twisting along the ground, crawling up tree trunks like living smoke. I squinted through the darkness, my heart pounding, trying to discern what lurked just beyond the reach of the flames. There was movement, fleeting and sinister, and yet he didn't flinch. His eyes stayed locked on the guitar, calm, commanding, as though he had danced with this darkness many times before. Each note he played carried weight, urgency, warning, and unspoken stories. The forest seemed to respond, leaves rustling even without wind, the night itself bending slightly toward the music. I felt drawn in, tethered to him, and to the firelight, as if the song was a lifeline against the unknown pressing in around us. A chill ran down my spine as I sensed a presence moving through the shadows. Something glided just beyond the firelight, quick, silent, and deliberate. My breath hitched. I expected him to react, to protect me, to warn me, but he simply continued playing. Calm, unwavering. That's when the truth hit me. He had seen this before. He wasn't just a stranger with a guitar. He was a man who belonged to this night, to these secrets. I tried to steady my breath, telling myself it was only the forest, only my imagination. But the shadows whispered differently. They weren't random. They seemed to test us, to probe, to recognize the music and the courage it required to keep playing. And then I realized the song itself was a shield, a story, and a key, all at once. I took a tentative step closer, drawn by the harmony that seemed to thread between us like a visible ribbon of light. Every strum, every chord seemed to awaken something, not just in the forest, but in me. It was as if the song had memory, as if it knew my fears, my hopes, and it wove them into its melody. The wind shifted, carrying soft whispers that made my heart race. I tilted my head, straining to hear, but the words slipped away before I could grasp them. Yet the feeling lingered. An urgency, a call, a secret waiting to be revealed. My pulse synced with the rhythm of the guitar, and I knew I was no longer a passive observer. I was part of this night, part of the story, whether I was ready or not. And then, a shadow darted across the clearing, faster than anything my eyes could follow. I froze. My chest tightened. The stranger didn't flinch. He didn't even pause. His fingers continued their dance across the strings, producing music that somehow felt stronger, braver, protective. That's when I knew. He had been through this before. He had danced with these shadows, and now, for reasons I couldn't yet understand, I was dancing with him. I closed my eyes, letting the firelight, the song, and the dark swirl around me. I felt the thread that connected us. Fragile, electric, unbreakable. Every note he played seemed to carry a piece of his history, of hidden battles, of nights, like this one that had tested his resolve. And I realized that the music was not merely sound. It was power. It was memory. It was a story that demanded attention. The shadows moved again, closer, brushing the outer edges of the firelight. My heart leaped. I wanted to flee, but my feet were anchored by the resonance of the song, by the intensity in his gaze, by the inexplicable pull that had drawn me to this clearing in the first place. I knew then that whatever secrets this night held, I had stumbled into them, and there was no turning back. Every detail became sharper, the curve of his jaw, the scar on his wrist, the way the fire reflected in his dark eyes. I memorized it all. Each small detail was a talisman, a proof that this moment was real, that the story unfolding was alive, and that I was a part of it. The night, the shadows, the firelight, the music, they were all conspiring to test me, to draw me in, to teach me something I could not yet name. A shadow darted past him again, impossibly close, flickering at the edge of the firelight. My chest froze, every nerve alight. He didn't flinch. I realized then that he had been expecting this, the danger, the whispers, the unseen eyes, and I was now part of it. A secret waited to be revealed, one that could change everything. And in that instant, I understood. Nothing about this night, or him, was ordinary. I never expected the night to hold secrets that would shake everything I believed about the world, until I saw him. There, by the fire, a stranger with haunted eyes and hands that moved over the guitar as if speaking a language older than time itself. Something in me knew. This was no ordinary man, and the night had just begun to reveal its truth. The fire crackled, sparks floating like tiny fireflies, and the night seemed impossibly still, heavy with anticipation. His fingers danced across the guitar strings, effortlessly creating melodies that tugged at the very edges of my soul. Each note carried weight, as if the music remembered things I had never lived, feelings I had never known. I dared not speak, only let my own voice join the harmony, tentative at first, trembling like a leaf in the wind, then slowly bold, confident, entwining with his. Every flicker of firelight across his face revealed lines of experience, hints of triumphs and heartbreaks unseen by the world. The calmness in his eyes was unnerving, a quiet power, a deep sorrow, and a humility that didn't belong to someone with such mastery. My heart raced. How could someone capable of moving thousands with a single song choose to sit here, hidden in the shadows, sharing this magic with me alone? The melody shifted suddenly, from soft and melancholic to urgent and bright, weaving images I couldn't explain. Empty concert halls, roaring applause, flashing lights. And yet here he was, unassuming, invisible to the fame that should have consumed him. I realized with a jolt, this man's life was a story, the world only whispered about, yet now it was unfolding in front of me. I dared a glance at his hands, calloused from decades of devotion, yet nimble and precise, shaping every note with a care that demanded reverence. His humility cut through me, a paradox, someone who could command arenas, yet chose silence. I could feel the weight of the life he carried, unspoken, waiting to reveal itself. But only here, tonight, by the firelight. Then he hummed a melody, one I recognized immediately, one that had filled grand stages, one that had become a legend in its own right. My chest tightened. Could it really be him? The musician whose name had been whispered in awe across the world, who had captivated millions, now sitting here, hidden, sharing fragments of a life I could barely comprehend. My hands shook. I wanted to ask, to demand answers, to confirm the impossible. Yet something in the way he played warned me to wait, to listen, to feel. Every chord vibrated not just through the air, but through me, resonating in my chest, stirring memories I didn't know I had. I realized then that this was more than music. It was a bridge, a confession, a revelation wrapped in melody. The night stretched on. Shadows deepened and swirled around us, yet he remained untouched, calm, enigmatic. Each note whispered stories of triumph, of loss, of moments hidden from the eyes of the world. The fire flickered, and for a brief second, I thought I could see stages in the flames, an audience of ghosts cheering silently, witnessing this clandestine concert. I leaned closer, heart hammering, and caught a glimpse of something extraordinary, humility wrapped in brilliance, power without arrogance, mastery without desire for recognition. My chest ached at the thought that someone capable of commanding the world could choose to hide, to exist simply, to share their gift only with a stranger by a fire. And then it happened. His eyes flickered toward the trees at the edge of the clearing, urgent, cautious. Something lay beneath the surface, a secret, a truth waiting to break free. My pulse quickened, a mix of fear and exhilaration coursing through me. I realized that this man's hidden life was more than a mystery. It was a story that could rewrite everything I thought I knew about courage, genius, and the choices people make when no one is watching. When he hummed the final note of that familiar melody, I froze. My heart raced, my mind screamed. Could it really be him, the legendary musician sitting here, sharing this secret with me alone? I dared not speak, yet I had to know. And in the firelight, his eyes held a story he hadn't yet told, one that could change everything I believed about the world, about music, and about him. I never thought a single night, a single song, could unravel the edges of my reality, until the first chord he played hit me like a truth I hadn't dared to imagine. The fire crackled between us, but its warmth was nothing compared to the pull of his gaze, the electricity threading through the air as if the night itself was holding its breath. Every note he strummed felt like a secret, meant only for me, and my voice trembled as I joined, weaving our souls together in a melody that spoke of danger, longing, and a destiny I didn't yet understand. The flames danced wildly, casting shadows that stretched and flickered, almost like they were alive, listening to the music we were creating. The night smelled of smoke, earth, and something intangible, a hint of mystery, a whisper of a life beyond this moment. He moved effortlessly over his guitar, fingers coaxing melodies that weren't just beautiful, but alive, resonating in my chest, shaking loose memories and desires I didn't know I carried. My voice, at first uncertain, grew bold and confident, harmonizing with him in a rhythm that felt older than time itself. The bond we formed was not just sound, it was a lifeline, a tether, a secret bridge between two hearts, two worlds. Every chord, every pause, carried meaning. Laughter bubbled up between us, but it mingled with tension. Something unseen stirred at the edges of the clearing. I sensed it. A shadow, a presence, something watching, waiting, measuring our courage. My pulse raced, yet the music grounded me, anchoring my fear and excitement into something tangible, something real. I stole a glance at him. His eyes were calm, almost too calm, reflecting the firelight like molten gold, but I could see layers beneath, a hidden life, untold stories, victories, and heartbreaks. There was power wrapped in humility, and that contradiction drew me closer, binding my curiosity with wonder and apprehension. He wasn't just a man playing music, he was a force I couldn't yet comprehend, yet I was inexplicably tethered to him. With each note, the night grew heavier and more alive. The wind carried whispers that seemed to echo the song, hints of a past, warnings of a future, shadows of moments I hadn't yet lived. I laughed softly at a sudden slip in rhythm, and his smile was small, enigmatic, a mixture of warmth and caution. There was a story behind those eyes, behind that music, a truth I had yet to uncover. I realized then that the music wasn't just connecting us, it was revealing us, exposing our fears, our desires, our hidden selves. The firelight flickered violently, as if reacting to the growing tension. A shadow moved at the edge of the clearing, subtle, almost imperceptible, but my senses screamed at me. He didn't flinch. That steadiness was unnerving. It spoke of experiences I had never known, a life that had walked stages, commanded audiences, and yet here he remained, hidden in humility, sharing his soul with me through melody alone. Every song, every shared breath, every harmony drew us closer. Music became our unspoken language, a conduit of emotions, a bridge across time, place, and circumstance. The night felt suspended in a bubble, cocooned by sound, alive with possibilities. And yet, the air carried a warning I could not ignore. Something approaching, something unseen, aware of the bond forming between us. I leaned closer, strumming in response to his subtle changes in rhythm. The melodies we created intertwined like vines, strengthening our connection, heightening the tension. I felt every vibration, every resonance in my bones, as if the music itself was a pulse linking our hearts, daring the unknown to interfere. And I knew, in the pit of my stomach, that this night was only the beginning. A sudden rustle from the shadows made my heart skip. I froze. He glanced briefly, eyes narrowing, the barest flicker of urgency. Something was coming. I felt it in the tightening of my chest, in the sharp inhale of the night air, in the way the fire crackled unnaturally. The music hadn't just been a song, it had been a shield, a signal, a warning. And now the unseen world was moving. We played on, faster, softer, louder, in a rhythm that seemed to challenge the unknown. Laughter, breath, and song merged into a delicate balance of fear and joy. I realized then that this bond was more than music. It was trust. It was revelation. It was survival. Every chord was a heartbeat, every silence a question, and every glance between us spoke of secrets yet to unfold. Suddenly, he stopped mid-strum, eyes sharp and unreadable, and the shadows shifted with a life of their own. I felt the night lean closer, breathing tension into my skin. Whatever was coming didn't just threaten the clearing, it threatened the very bond we had forged. He whispered something I couldn't hear, and in that moment, I knew. The music had been a warning all along. The story was about to change forever. I could no longer dismiss the feeling that this man beside me was more than he appeared. Each glance, each movement, each note he played was a whisper of a secret the world hadn't known. The firelight danced across his face, illuminating eyes that seemed to hold entire stages within them, memories of applause and the quiet torment of hidden fame. Every instinct in me screamed, this was not an ordinary man. My heart pounded with a mixture of fear, awe, and something dangerously like hope. The hope that the truth, long buried, was finally surfacing. I tried to focus on the music, on the harmonies we created, but my mind refused to stay quiet. Every time he played, subtle details emerged that hinted at a life far beyond what the worn guitar, the rough clothes, and the secluded clearing suggested. The finesse of his hands, the way fingers curved over the strings with an effortless precision, betrayed hours, years, decades of training. Not just talent, but mastery. It was a language only the skilled could speak, yet he had played it before me as casually as breathing. His voice, warm, low, yet commanding, carried knowledge of songs I had never known, of melodies that seemed to contain stories from another world. Every lyric he sang seemed threaded with a secret, a message encoded for those who could truly hear. And I realized, with a sudden jolt to my chest, that he was speaking to me, to this moment, in ways I had only begun to understand. The way he carried himself, the slight tilt of his shoulders, the ease in his posture, the confident calm that never faltered even as the wind shifted, suggested a life where thousands had watched, applauded, and waited for him. He moved as though invisible eyes had always been upon him, shaping every gesture, every breath, every strum. Each small clue built on the next, constructing a mosaic I could no longer ignore. And then, impossibly, unmistakably, it happened. A single chord, a single melody, sliced through the night air like a thread connecting worlds. My breath caught. I knew it immediately. It was a tune I had only ever heard in recordings of a world-famous concert, one I had never dreamed I would hear played here, in the smoke and flicker of this quiet fire. He played it flawlessly, every note precise, every pause charged with emotion. It was him, unmistakably, undeniably, the musician whose name had dominated stages, whose performances had moved entire cities. My heart thudded in my chest, a deafening drum that drowned out even the crackle of the fire. Could this be real? Could the man I had been laughing and singing with, sharing moments beneath the stars, truly be the legendary musician hidden behind ordinary clothing and quiet humility? Every detail I had brushed off now screamed the truth. The fire, the music, the way he looked at me when our eyes met, the way his fingers traced invisible patterns even as he strummed. It had all been a silent confession. I swallowed hard, unable to tear my eyes from him. My hands trembled slightly as I reached for the guitar, as if touching it could somehow confirm or deny the truth I was beginning to feel in my bones. He looked up, and for a fleeting moment, the faintest smile curved his lips. Not arrogance, not triumph, but recognition. Recognition that I had noticed, that I had seen the clues, that I had pieced together the story his life had quietly told. The night seemed to hold its breath. The forest was silent, the fire reduced to a steady glow. Even the wind seemed to pause, leaving only the resonance of the music between us. And I realized, terrifyingly and beautifully, that the life I had glimpsed in the firelight, the hints of grandeur beneath his quiet presence, were just the surface. There was a story here, a life of fame, exile, hidden struggles, and secrets that had waited for someone like me to understand, to witness. I dared a step closer. Who are you? Really? I whispered, though the words sounded feeble against the weight of revelation pressing down on my chest. His fingers paused mid-strum, the guitar vibrating faintly in response, as if alive. His eyes locked onto mine, steady, calm, and somehow infinitely knowing. He didn't speak, but the silence was louder than any answer, louder than the music itself. I felt the pull of connection tighten between us, a bond strengthened not just by notes and chords, but by truths half hidden and now emerging. The melodies he played were a map, and I was following it, uncovering the edges of his life that had been carefully hidden from the world. Every glance, every harmonic shift, every pause was a breadcrumb leading me toward understanding, toward something larger than myself. The firelight flickered violently, casting long shadows that danced across his face and hands. I realized that the story unfolding wasn't just his. It was ours, created in the hush of the night, tied together by music, recognition, and the power of secrets revealed. Each detail added to a crescendo of revelation that left me breathless, heart racing, and utterly captivated. And then he played a final chord, the melody lingering in the air like a promise, a challenge, a confession. I knew I had to confront it. I had to ask, to hear the truth in his own voice. But before I could speak, he glanced up suddenly, eyes sharp, fingers poised. There was a tension now, a moment suspended, where the secret hovered in the air between us like a live wire. My chest tightened. I realized that everything I had seen, heard, and felt, every note, every glance, every subtle gesture, had been a silent confession of his true identity. And now, in the firelight, I knew the story was about to shift forever. He leaned closer, and his voice broke the quiet of the night. There's more you need to understand, if you're ready to hear it. The night seemed to lean in. The shadows waited, and the music, our secret language, held its breath. I never expected one night, one fleeting melody, to unravel the world I thought I knew. The moment I heard him play, it was as if the stars themselves leaned closer to listen. His fingers danced across the strings with a certainty that made my own heart stutter, like he was speaking in a language only I could understand. Every note carried secrets I wasn't ready for, yet couldn't turn away from. The firelight flickered against his face, hiding truths that burned brighter than the flames, and I realized that by the end of this night, nothing would ever be the same. The night air was thick, heavy with the scent of smoke, earth, and something indefinably magical. Shadows from the fire flickered across his face, stretching and shrinking as his hands moved over the guitar. I could feel the tension, the history, the unspoken story woven into each note he strummed. It wasn't just music. It was a confession, a call, a revelation disguised as song. I hesitated, then added my voice, tentative at first, but soon bold and clear. Every note we shared built invisible threads between us, threads that carried laughter, fear, longing, and a promise of something greater than either of us. I realized, with a jolt, that I wasn't merely singing. I was conversing with a soul who had lived through triumphs I couldn't imagine, and sorrows I hadn't yet understood. The melodies wound tighter around me, pulling my chest, quickening my breath. His eyes held mine, calm, unflinching, and yet impossibly deep, like he was daring me to see beyond the fire, beyond the night, beyond the man he pretended to be. And in that gaze, I felt the first stirrings of a secret, one that would change everything I thought I knew about him, about life, music, and the invisible connections that thread through the universe. Time seemed suspended. The fire crackled and popped, but the sound felt distant, almost irrelevant. The only thing real was the music and the space it carved around us. I could see the life he had hidden, the stages, the applause, the millions of eyes that had once followed him, now compressed into every strum of his fingers. And yet, here he was, ordinary, humble, yet carrying the weight of extraordinary secrets. My own heart felt impossibly loud. I wanted to ask him, to demand answers, but words failed me. Music had become the language of truth, and every note he played carried the tension of a life lived in shadows, waiting to be discovered. My soul ached to understand, to connect, to glimpse the world he had kept hidden. Then, almost imperceptibly, the wind shifted, scattering a few papers from his lap. One sheet twirled down, landing at my feet. My eyes caught the faint lettering, illuminated by the firelight. My pulse spiked. A name. A name I had only ever seen in headlines, whispered in stories, celebrated on stages far above my small world, was now in my hands. And he hadn't flinched, hadn't broken character. But I knew everything was about to change. My hands trembled as I held the paper, heart hammering. The man whose melodies had haunted my dreams, whose voice carried worlds I couldn't have imagined, was someone the world already knew, revered, and sought. Yet here he was, playing for me, hidden in plain sight. And the firelight flickered against his eyes, guarding a secret that would turn my world upside down. In that moment, I realized this night was only the beginning, and I was standing at the edge of a truth I wasn't ready to face. Every glance he cast, every chord he struck, every subtle smile whispered secrets I wasn't ready to hear. Yet the universe seemed determined to pull the veil aside, dropping breadcrumbs that I could not, would not, ignore. My heart thudded in a rhythm in sync with his guitar, each note vibrating through my chest as if the night itself had conspired to reveal truths hidden in plain sight. And then, almost as if timed with the strum of a final chord, I saw it. A sheet of music tucked beneath the firelight, glowing faintly, calling my name with urgency I could not resist. The night had deepened, the fire flickering in sync with my growing apprehension. I crouched near the small flame, careful not to disturb him, though every instinct screamed that I was about to cross into something I couldn't yet comprehend. He played on, strumming melodies that had woven themselves into the very fabric of my dreams. Yet tonight, something felt different. There was a precision in his hands, a familiarity in the way he bent each note that suggested the music was not just improvisation. It was a code, a message, a confession waiting to be uncovered. I reached for the notebook, heart hammering so loudly I thought he might hear it. The paper felt heavier than it should have, the weight of expectations, secrets, and destiny pressing into my fingers. And then I saw it. Unmistakable, undeniable. The compositions were hers. No, his. The compositions of the musician whose name I had whispered in awe, whose face I had seen on posters and stages across the continent. The shock hit me like a tidal wave. I blinked, trying to reconcile the man before me, humble and quiet, with the legend whose music had filled arenas and hearts alike. How could this be? Every fiber of my being screamed that I was imagining it, that the magic of the night had tricked me. Yet every detail, the precision of his hands, the rhythm of his strums, the subtle shifts in his expression as he played, pointed to the impossible truth. My mind raced, trying to catch up with the clues scattered before me like stars forming a constellation meant only for me to see. And I realized, with a chill running down my spine, that this was no ordinary encounter. I was witnessing something extraordinary, someone extraordinary, hiding in plain sight. I couldn't speak. Words seemed trivial, fragile, unworthy of the enormity pressing down on me. My voice had left me, swallowed by awe, fear, and the delicious terror of discovery. Yet my hands betrayed me, moving almost on their own to trace the delicate lines of the sheet music. Every note, every crescendo, every pause seemed imbued with intention, each a subtle confession. This was his language, his history, his story, encoded not in words, but in the music that had enchanted millions, now spilling into the quiet intimacy of the night between the two of us. He paused briefly, as if sensing my gaze lingering over the paper. His eyes, dark and unreadable, met mine. There was no fear, no hesitation, only a quiet acknowledgement. A flicker of something between recognition and vulnerability passed across his face, vanishing as quickly as it appeared. My chest tightened, and I realized that this night, this fire, this music, this man, was no longer just a fleeting memory. It was the beginning of a revelation I had no choice but to follow. The wind picked up, rustling the pages of the notebook, sending shivers through my spine. The firelight danced across his face, revealing lines and angles I had never noticed, a depth that both frightened and fascinated me. I could feel the air thickening with anticipation, the night holding its breath alongside me. Every note he strummed now felt like a question, every glance a clue, every silence a trapdoor into a world I had only glimpsed in fragments of songs and headlines. And with each passing moment, the tension coiled tighter, like the strings of his guitar were tuning themselves to the rhythm of my heart. I lifted the notebook, staring at the familiar symbols and patterns, each one a bridge between the man I thought I knew and the legend I had idolized from afar. My hands shook. My breath came in uneven bursts. The fire crackled, a lonely sentinel in the night, yet it couldn't illuminate the enormity of what I was about to discover. How had he lived among ordinary life while carrying the weight of a fame, a talent, and a destiny far beyond mine? How had he hidden so completely? And why had the universe chosen me to find him tonight? Then he reached into his pocket, pulling out a folded note. His movements were deliberate, careful, almost ceremonial. My heart skipped a beat. I had no idea what it contained, but I knew it was a key, a confession, a map, a bridge into the world he had kept secret for so long. He handed it to me, fingers brushing mine lightly, and the contact sent a shiver racing down my spine. I unfolded the paper with trembling hands, each crease revealing a fragment of truth, each word making my pulse race faster. My mind spun. The notes, the handwriting, the subtle hints embedded in the text. They all screamed that this man was not who he pretended to be. He was the musician whose name resonated in concert halls, whose songs had been etched into the hearts of millions. And yet, here he was, beside a simple fire in the wilderness, playing for me alone, as if the world outside didn't exist. A storm of questions collided in my mind. How long had he been hiding? Why here? Why now? Was this encounter fate, coincidence, or something beyond both? I looked up at him, searching for answers, but his face remained calm, unreadable, guarding secrets I wasn't yet ready to bear. And in that moment, I realized the fire, the night, the music, the very air around us had conspired to reveal this truth slowly, deliberately, with precision that left me breathless. Every instinct in me screamed that the note was only the beginning, that within its folds lay more than names or compositions. It held invitations, warnings, promises, and truths that would rewrite everything I believed about him, about music, and about the night that had brought us together. My pulse thundered, my chest tightened, and I understood that the next steps would demand courage I wasn't sure I possessed. But the universe had delivered the first hint, and there was no turning back. My hands shook as I unfolded the note completely. Every word, every symbol, every line seemed alive, pulsing with a secret I hadn't yet dared to imagine. He watched me quietly, unreadable, a calm force beneath the chaos of revelation. The fire crackled, the night held its breath, and I realized that the man before me, the stranger, the musician, the legend, was about to change my life forever. And I knew. Whatever the note revealed, I was unprepared for the truth it carried. The night held its breath, as if waiting for something impossible to happen. Every star above seemed to pulse with the rhythm of our song. Every shadow flickered in harmony with the fire's glow. I never imagined that a single night, a single melody, could bend time, warp reality, and make my heart understand a truth it had long ignored. Sitting beside him, the man whose talent, humility, and mystery had captivated me, I felt as if the universe itself had folded around this moment, aligning every breath, every note, and every heartbeat to create something sacred, ephemeral, and utterly unforgettable. The fire crackled, sending sparks into the darkened sky, and the night air smelled of smoke, earth, and something almost magical, a scent that stirred memories I hadn't yet lived. I could feel the warmth radiating from the flames, but more importantly, I could feel the quiet energy between us, a tether formed of music, glance, and the subtle weight of unspoken truths. Each chord he strummed hummed deep in my chest, resonating through every fiber of my body. My own voice joined in tentatively at first, trembling like a fragile thread, and then, gradually, finding strength in the unity of our melodies. I watched him, every subtle movement, every flick of a wrist, every tilt of the head revealing a life larger than the one I had glimpsed in passing. There was a grace in his playing, an elegance in his simplicity, a humility that belied the brilliance I had only heard in stadiums and recordings. And yet, here he was, beside a simple fire in the wilderness, sharing that brilliance as if it were nothing extraordinary, as if the music itself had chosen him, not for fame, but for moments like this, moments that demanded reverence and attention. My fingers unconsciously mimicked his on the rhythm, guided by instinct, until our music flowed together, seamlessly, as though the night had waited centuries to bring two voices together in perfect harmony. Every note struck a chord in my soul, reverberating memories I didn't even know I had, dreams I hadn't dared to articulate, and emotions that swelled beyond the capacity of words. The boundaries of reality blurred. I was no longer a girl by a fire, and he was no longer a stranger. Together, we had created a world contained in melody, a universe suspended in strings, voice, and silent understanding. As the song reached a crescendo, I dared a glance at him. His eyes were dark, unreadable, yet flickering with a warmth that made my chest ache. In that instant, I understood. He was not just a musician, he was a storyteller, a keeper of histories, a guardian of unspoken truths. Every note he had, played tonight, every pause, every glance, every shared smile had been a story in itself. And I, somehow, had been chosen to witness it, to be part of it, to merge my own heartbeat with his in a symphony older than time. The night around us grew still, almost reverent. The wind held back its breath, the firelight paused mid-flicker, and even the crickets seemed to hush. I felt weightless yet rooted, exhilarated yet cautious, aware that this moment could never be replicated, never be contained within ordinary memory. It was sacred, it was fragile, and it was terrifying. Because I knew, deep in the pit of my stomach, that such heights could only be followed by profound revelations, truths that could lift or break the heart entirely. Then, as if on cue, a faint sound reached my ears, a ripple of applause carried by the night breeze, subtle but distinct. I froze, heart pounding violently. At first I thought it was the imagination, a trick of the firelight, a mirage created by the intensity of our shared music. But then the sound repeated, growing slightly clearer, almost like the acknowledgement of an unseen audience. Every note we had played seemed to echo beyond the boundaries of the firelight, reaching somewhere, touching someone, resonating with more than just the earth beneath us. He looked at me, a slow, unreadable smile forming on his lips, and my pulse quickened. Was he aware? Had he felt the presence of unseen witnesses? Or was it merely my own mind projecting wonder onto the night? I dared not break the fragile silence between us. The song had ended, but its echoes lingered in the air, vibrating against the invisible walls of reality. The applause, faint and ephemeral, hinted at something far larger than our intimate performance, something that suggested the universe itself had acknowledged the truth we were both beginning to uncover. For the first time, I dared to notice the depth in his gaze, the subtle hints of a life spent both in light and shadow. His hands rested gently on his guitar, yet the tension in his posture betrayed the careful restraint of someone who had carried secrets for longer than I could imagine. Every detail, the calluses on his fingers, the way his sleeves were rolled up, the faint scar near his wrist, screamed history, practice, triumph, and concealment. And I realized that the firelight, the night, the very rhythm of our shared song, had been a prelude to a revelation I wasn't yet ready to embrace. My heart ached with longing, anticipation, and fear. I wanted to know everything, to peel back the layers of mystery that cloaked him, to understand why he had hidden, and why, of all nights, I had been the one to share this moment with him. I felt connected, to him, to the music, to the night itself, in ways that defied explanation. And yet, beneath the exhilaration, a small tremor of dread pulsed through me, whispering that the next revelation could shatter the fragile perfection of the moment, leaving only the raw, unfiltered truth behind. The wind shifted again, carrying faint, indistinct sounds from afar. Perhaps it was my imagination, yet the applause had returned, slightly louder, more distinct, resonating as if someone, or something, had been listening, had acknowledged us, had been waiting for the song to end to make its presence known. My chest tightened, breaths coming short and uneven. And then I understood. This night, this fire, this music, it was not merely a performance. It was a test, a signal, a prelude to the unveiling of a secret, one that would forever change the way I saw him, the world, and myself. I dared not speak. The silence was sacred. The night, the fire, and the fading echoes of applause held me captive, forcing me to absorb the enormity of the moment. Every nerve in my body was alive, every heartbeat in sync with his, every thought tangled in a web of anticipation. And I knew that the truth, the revelation that had been hinted at in notes, glances, and subtle gestures, was waiting, poised to strike like a sudden chord, unstoppable and irrevocable. The faint applause swelled suddenly, breaking the fragile silence. I looked up, and for the first time, I noticed a shadow at the edge of the firelight, a presence I hadn't seen before. His gaze sharpened, focused, unreadable, and I realized that whatever the universe had been hinting at was about to reveal itself. The night held its breath, the stars twinkled with urgency, and I knew. This was only the beginning of a story that would unravel everything I thought I knew about him, the music, and the world itself. Life rarely presents a choice this monumental, a fork so sharp that every instinct, every heartbeat, demands attention. Step into the unknown, risk everything, or remain in the safety of what is familiar. The village I had known, the quiet nights, the firelight, and the simple rhythm of days measured by chores, meals, and songs. And yet, here he was, offering his hand, inviting me to cross that line, to leave behind the life I had built from dust and determination, and step into a world I had only dared to dream of. The fire flickered between us, its warm light throwing dancing shadows over the forest floor, over the edges of the clearing that had become our stage. The night air carried the scent of pine, smoke, and wet earth, rich and alive, as if the forest itself was aware of the decision hanging between us. My chest tightened, every breath shallow, every muscle taut. I looked at him, the man who had transformed the quiet of a night into a symphony that resonated in my soul, whose hands had guided me through melodies that felt older than time itself. Could I step forward? Could I leave the small world I knew, my family, the village that had cradled me through every hardship? Fear clawed at me first. The unknown stretched before me like an endless road shrouded in mist. What awaited beyond the familiar paths of our village? The promise of stages, applause, and the music we had shared called to me, but the uncertainty gnawed at the edges of my courage. Every story I had heard of the world beyond, cities filled with strangers, fame with its shallow smiles and harsh judgments, played like shadows over the luminous path he offered. My feet itched to move, yet the weight of potential regret held me back. Could I risk everything for a dream that had only existed in fragments, in notes, in firelight whispers? And then came excitement, a rush, a surge of life I had never known. Each chord we had shared, every note of our voices entwined beneath the stars, reminded me that I was capable of more than I had believed. The connection we had forged, delicate and electric, was a bridge to something I had never seen, but had always longed for. My heart, untethered, began to soar with possibility. The music had shown me that the world could be bigger, brighter, more alive than the boundaries I had built around my life. It had taught me courage, vulnerability, and the beauty of trust. Could I now summon the bravery to step through the threshold that beckoned so insistently? I glanced at him again. His eyes, steady and luminous in the firelight, held no judgment, only encouragement, only patience. The strength in his gaze was not domineering, but quiet, rooted in the knowledge that the right choice could not be forced, only discovered. "The world is waiting," he said softly, voice blending with the whispering wind and the crackle of the fire. "But it won't wait forever." Those words struck me with the weight of inevitability, and the stillness of the forest seemed to emphasize the gravity of the moment. Every leaf, every shadow, every flicker of flame held its breath alongside me. My mind raced. I thought of the village, the simple routines, the faces of my family illuminated by lamplight, the quiet mornings by the river. I thought of the songs I had sung under the canopy of trees, the music that had brought him and me together, the melodies that had carried my voice into places I had never known existed. And I thought of the life he offered, stages filled with lights, music pulsing through packed halls, the thrill of creation and recognition. Could I give up one for the other? Could a heart divided between familiarity and destiny ever find peace? The forest around us seemed to respond to my hesitation. The fire's light flickered like a pulse, and a gust of wind rustled the leaves as though urging me to move, to decide. My fingers brushed against his hand. Tentative, searching, feeling warmth, reassurance, and a promise that the unknown might not be as frightening as it appeared. The firelight caught the glint of his eyes, and for the first time, I truly saw him, not as a stranger, not merely a musician, but as a guide, a partner, a catalyst for a journey that demanded my trust. And yet, the weight of consequence pressed down. I could see the paths, diverging before me, one leading to the familiar safety of the village, the comfort of routine, the predictability of life lived in quiet cycles, the other leading into uncertainty, adventure, exposure, vulnerability, and the possibility of being lost to myself in the dazzling lights of a world I barely understood. My heart fluttered, my pulse raced, and tears pricked my eyes. Every instinct told me to stay. Every note, every memory, every glance, every touch whispered, "Step forward." I thought of our music, The bond we had woven through melodies and shared dreams, the fire that had witnessed our connection. It was a language that transcended fear, transcended doubt. In music, we had already crossed boundaries that words could not. In music, I had found courage I did not know I possessed. Could I now let that courage guide me into a world that demanded risk, faith, and total surrender? He shifted slightly, ever so subtly, extending his hand fully. His smile was calm, unwavering, almost gentle in its insistence. "Trust yourself," he whispered, his voice a soft echo of the songs we had sung. "The life you're meant to live is just beyond your fear." I swallowed, every fiber of my being vibrating with anticipation and terror, with longing and hesitation, with the thrill of possibility. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of earth, pine, and distant memories. The forest held its breath, the firelight trembled, and in that moment I realized that the world, vast, unpredictable, alive, had paused for me to choose. My hand hovered, shaking slightly over his. Every second stretched, a universe in itself, until the quiet insistence of my heart outweighed fear. I inhaled, letting the warmth of the night, the fire, and his presence fill me. I reached out. Our hands met. The forest stilled, holding its breath, every shadow, every leaf, every spark frozen in anticipation. The world seemed to hinge on that single touch, waiting for my choice to ripple through it. And in that instant, I knew that nothing, not my past, not my fear, not the village I had called home, could remain unchanged. The path ahead, brilliant and uncertain, was mine to step onto, if I dared. Tomorrow I would leave the fire behind, the flickering warmth, the shadows that had cradled my voice, the quiet intimacy of night, and step into a world where dreams were no longer whispers in the dark, but realities bathed in light. I had imagined this moment countless times, but nothing had prepared me for the gravity of knowing it was real, that the path I had chosen, trembling as I did at the forest edge, had led me here. The first sunlight brushed across the distant city skyline, spilling gold and rose over buildings I had only glimpsed in dreams. The air was crisp, carrying scents of street markets, blooming flowers, and the faint tang of coffee from early risers below. I felt it in my chest, the pulse of destiny, steady and insistent, threading through every step I took. My hand, clutching his, trembled slightly. He squeezed back, a quiet reassurance, a promise that I would not face this alone. Every step we took away from the forest clearing felt monumental. The fire, the music, the nights beneath stars, all of it had been a prelude to this morning. The city hummed beneath our feet as if aware that tomorrow our lives would change forever. Each breath I drew was filled with anticipation, fear, and a strange elation, a mixture of relief and wonder that all the tiny moments, all the courage and uncertainty, had converged into a single, impossible reality. I thought back to the first night by the fire, the hesitance in my voice, the tentative harmony we had created, the feeling of his gaze like a tether drawing me into a story I hadn't yet understood. All of it had built the bridge to this moment. Every note, every whispered melody, every shared smile had been a step toward the stage. And now, the world awaited, vast and expectant, far beyond the forest, far beyond the quiet village paths where my life had begun. The hotel room we stayed in that night felt surreal, an antechamber to something far larger than either of us. Hand in hand, we walked through corridors lined with polished wood and soft light. The walls seemed to vibrate with anticipation. I caught glimpses of framed posters, the same faces I had seen on TV, in concert halls, names and lights that had always seemed distant, now suddenly tangible. My pulse quickened. The gravity of tomorrow pressed on me, but so did exhilaration. This was the culmination of everything we had built, every melody, every shared dream, every risk we had taken. He turned to me, eyes shining in the soft glow of morning, and whispered, "Are you ready for what comes next?" I nodded, though my heart was a drum inside my chest. Ready, yes, but aware that once I stepped on that stage, nothing could ever be the same. My voice, my music, the firelight that had held our secrets, would all be transformed into something larger, seen and heard by a world waiting with bated breath. I walked to the window, looking down at the streets waking beneath us. The city was alive with movement, cars weaving through avenues, vendors setting up their stalls, people rushing past, unaware that one small, trembling step on a stage above would ripple into countless lives. The thought made my chest tighten. The stakes were higher than applause. This was the threshold between the girl who sang beneath the firelight and the one who would command the attention of the world. Every memory of the journey flooded me. The timid notes I had sung, the moments of doubt and fear, the stolen glances, the nights spent perfecting melodies until my fingers ached. I thought of the people who had believed in me, who had never stopped encouraging me, and of the man beside me who had transformed each note into a bridge between imagination and reality. Tomorrow, the stage would not just be lights and sound. It would be the culmination of trust, of courage, and of the bond we had forged in secret, beneath a canopy of stars. We rehearsed one last time in the quiet of the room, the piano and guitar blending softly, the chords echoing like a heartbeat. My voice, once fragile and tentative, now soared with confidence and vulnerability intertwined. Every note was a promise to myself, to him, and to the unseen audience that awaited tomorrow. The firelight of memory clung to me still, mingling with the sunlight of morning, a reminder that courage was both learned and inherited from every choice I had ever made. And yet, as the shadows of morning shifted, doubt lingered. The enormity of the stage, the gaze of thousands, the scrutiny, the possibility of failure, all loomed like ghosts at the edge of my excitement. My hands clenched his, seeking reassurance. His smile was calm, unwavering, a silent tether that anchored me to the truth. The music was not just for them, it was for us. The firelight, the night, the secret songs we had shared, all of it had prepared me for this moment, this leap, this choice. I closed my eyes and imagined the stage, lights bright enough to erase shadows, microphones capturing every tremble of emotion, thousands of eyes fixed on us. I saw the applause, the smiles, the recognition, but also the responsibility, the truth that music was a gift, a bridge, a language of the soul. Could I carry it? Could I step beyond the fire, beyond the familiar, and rise fully into the life that awaited? He lifted my hand, placing it over the sheet music, over the notes that had been our secret language. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "the world listens. But tonight, remember who you are. Remember every step that brought you here. Remember the fire." I nodded, feeling the weight and warmth of his words. Each beat of my heart resonated with the memory of our journey. Each hesitation, each harmony, each whisper beneath the stars had led to this morning, to this moment of calm, before the storm of applause and expectation. The sunlight deepened, casting a warm glow across the room, and for a fleeting second, everything felt suspended. Time itself holding its breath, awaiting the moment when we would step from shadows into light. I breathed in, steadying myself, knowing that tomorrow was not just a performance. It was the manifestation of dreams, the answer to unspoken prayers, the culmination of a journey that began with a single note, a single melody by the fire. VIP passes shimmered in my hand, proof that tomorrow would be nothing like tonight. The firelight behind us had prepared me, but the stage ahead promised a world unimagined, a reality where every song, every note, every heartbeat would be magnified. I felt the weight and thrill of destiny pressing down, thrilling and terrifying all at once. Tomorrow I would sing, not for the fire, not for shadows, but for the world. And I knew, deep in my soul, nothing would ever be the same. If this story of music, destiny, and hidden truths moved you, hit like and let us know. Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever discovered a secret that changed everything? Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a journey full of mystery, emotion, and inspiration. Your next adventure begins the moment you stay with us until the very end.